Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships with our Veteran Player Guide series in part 4, where today is going to be a follow-up and also a launch to following videos here in the Veteran Player Guide series, where last time, part 3, we talked about knowing your ship. When you know your ship, that gives you much more confidence in terms of how you can play the ship, position your ship, but also when you know enemy ships as well, their strengths and weaknesses, then that helps you play off of it and so on and so forth. So the goal of this video today is to talk about kind of an introduction video in a sense of talking about ship lineup, whether it's your team, enemy team, map positioning, map awareness, and playing off kind of the flow of the battle. And I want to go from this video to talk about how would you position playing a torpedo destroyer or like a gunboat destroyer, and I'll kind of put those in the same video because, you know, gunboat destroyers play different than DD destroyers. But probably the video I'll go right after this is talking about map awareness. A lot of players, and myself, I definitely kind of spaz and miss out on what's happening in terms of map awareness to help understand the flow of the battle, because if you understand the flow of the battle, it dictates what type of decisions you need to make. So what I'm going to do here, I'm playing a WoW's replay file. I'm going to pause it for a minute, and I'm going to press the tab key and showing you this lineup. So this was actually a really favorable lineup for us because one is there are no CVs and there are no submarines. I have had multiple games before this where I was having CVs and subs, and I actually torpedo killed a Gato tier 10 premium American submarine, so that was kind of funny. And that's really favorable, like right off the bat. So, you know, before the battle starts, for me in a veteran player mind, I'm combing over this, mainly to see what's happening up on the enemy team. So if I'm playing a torpedo destroyer, I'm like, okay, are there CVs? Are there subs? No. Next thing I pour into is, okay, how many radars do their team have? They have an Edgar. He can take a 10-kilometer radar. Alaska 10-kilometer radar. Ragnar, I think it's a 8.5, isn't it? Or am I messing that up in my head? No, 7.5. Excuse me. 7.5 kilometer radar. And then there's no other radar, but there's a Kearsarge, right? So he gets planes. So we have a hybrid. So that's something. Anything that's going to give away my spotting as a torpedo destroyer. That's what I'm paying attention to and I'm focusing in on. As the game starts. So as I'm sailing to my position, I'm combing all these things through my mind. You know, otherwise I'm like, well, I got to be mindful of Venezia's sap. I might run into another Shimakaze player. So I have to be mindful with him. You know, as a Trump, he's got the airstrikes and then a Fletcher. So I don't want to run into Ragnar or take that abuse, if you will. So I have to be mindful with thinking about what potential gunboat hybrid destroyers that can outperform me in terms of guns that will outdo me, right? So I'm playing with that in mind, and then I got to find out if Edgar, if he's on my flank, does he have radar or is he a smoke Edgar? Because that will dictate maybe my positioning and how much distance I have to give on this flank. So we're going to go back into it and continue on. So we're here on Two Brothers in a random battle domination mode. So I've looked on the mini-map. Let me pause this again. Looking at the mini-map here, you can see that there are two destroyers already over on the 9-10 line. If I press tab key again, you know, I'm seeing, I have a Jaeger, Kleber, Elbing, and then I see we have some radar as well. We don't have any hybrids. But there's already two destroyers over on D flank, so I don't feel confident to go over, or there's no need for me to go over here. I'd rather go over here and support, it's an Elbing that's here. And then I don't have hydro, I don't have radar. It'd be pretty gutsy of me to go down mid. So I'm not going to go down mid. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to come over here to the A flank, or A cap, and work the 1-3 line. You can have a 20-point commander on Shimakaze. On torpedoes destroyers in general, like not even getting into the build a little bit here, but you typically want to run radio location frequency, or it's also known as RPF, radio position frequency. And I'm using a mod, and that's giving that red tinge that kind of shows me who the closest enemy is. And here already, I can see that there's someone on the cap. So it's going to likely be a destroyer. So what I'm thinking about as I typically run around as my torpedoes out, is I want to torpedo that smoke screen. So what I'm going to do here is I want to see which way is the smoke screen going, which way is he traveling to catch him off guard. So I can see he started off back here, he's coming forward. Maybe it looks like he's actually beginning to go left here. So I can see he's going left. So I'm going to dump it out like that. Also, if he's concealing any cruisers, you have a cruise sergeant in Alaska, so this Alaska ends up playing pretty far back. He's kind of useless to his team, almost, if you will. But I know the hybrid's here, and I know there's a 10-kilometer radar cruiser here. So I'm keeping that in mind. I've not touched the cap yet. I'm about to. Elbing's about to step on the cap. I have to be mindful. Now I see the Ragnar. He's 8.7 kilometers away. So I'm outside of his radar range. But this destroyer, as soon as maybe someone steps on the cap, he's going to know that someone else is here. And it's likely a torpedo destroyer, right? You know, Ragnar's here. He doesn't have torp, so it's a Shima, it's a Tromp, or it's a Fletcher. That's the information I'm going off of. So I'm like, okay, I think I'll slip onto the cap now. I don't want to smoke up and give away telling that possible torpedo destroyer where I'm at, where to torp. And then two things happen here. Elbing smokes up, so that gives away where the destroyer perhaps is stepping on the cap. And so his response is, maybe I need a torpedo that smoke screen. So he went out broadside, and then he decides to turn back around, go broadside again, and what does he eat? He eats torpedoes for breakfast. So even though we didn't know where he was, I mean, we had a rough idea he was going this way, and I thought maybe he would stay in there and reverse to continue to contest the cap. That's not what he does. He comes back full broadside again. Smoke screens are torpedo magnets. You know, Jingles is pretty infamous for saying that. So he wasn't respecting other destroyers here in the cap that also have torpedoes, right? All of our torpedoes, our destroyers have torpedoes, especially if I deal with the Jaeger torps. Like he shoots out 12, like, what, like, how fast are those torpedoes? I always forget. 95 knots. The other thing is, you see the Edgar. So I'm trying to be mindful. Is he smoke? I see there's a smoke screen over there. So I'm thinking maybe for now he's smoke, he's not radar. I was also very, I'm going to break the screen here. I was conscious of this Fletcher dumping out torps. You know, he kind of went this way. He didn't get fully turned in to launch him this way, so that's why I'm angling away. So what did he do? He torped over here. And this Elbing actually gets really lucky because he's making the same mistake the Fletcher did, and he's just sailing full on broadside. So hopefully I won't stop the video a ton because I don't want to make this a really long video for you guys, but I don't want to break down. Other thing is, you know, so I actually had my finger on the Y key. Like my right hand was on the Y key for engine boost, and I had like ready to press W if there's torps coming at me that I could instantly run out. Now here at this point, we have cap control, so there's no need for us to push, no need to be aggressive. We did lose a destroyer over here on the flank. But we have cap control, so we basically just have to sit here, and we're going to work on spotting for our team. Right now, there's just a lot of smoke everywhere. We have to be mindful, you know, Ragnar might push back in. He might utilize that smoke. I'm also have to be mindful of Edgar torpedoes. His are 12-kilometer torpedoes. So it's possible he could have torped when he turned out. So that's also another reason why I'm reversed this way. I'm trying to pay attention to what the possible threats are, especially now that I know that Fletcher torps aren't an issue. So here I'm trying to think, okay, I've got 12-kilometer torpedoes. I got 15 in my Shimakaze. I think that Ohio might try to walk up the flank. I might do that if I was him. Otherwise, I'm thinking probably dumping the third rack over here. And there's some torpedoes, I think that was on the screen. Yeah, one right there. And I'm just trying to figure out what is Ohio going to do. And I decide, hey, I'm going to dump the third rack a little delayed in case the Ohio drags his feet coming up the flank. Now I do decide to go ahead and engage the Ragnar. And I lost my mouse key. Oh, that was weird. Engage the Ragnar because there's kind of no reason not to. I'm sailing away. I feel confident. If I can bring him down a little bit, it'll help. He also, Ragnar gets a heal. So he's going to take quite a battering for our team to eliminate him and get rid of him. But he also has that 25 millimeter belt. So I have to try, if I'm shooting HE at him, right, if I look here, I pinned 21mm. I'm about to try to go for his bow or his stern. Something really unfortunate happens here. The Elbing catches me, and he's kind of not polite in the sense where he slows down to let me get off of him, and instead he starts open gunboating. And so if anyone shoots at Elbing, they're very likely to hit me as well, so I'm kind of not very appreciative in the moment, because I didn't know he was coming up the direction he was. So I was paying attention to what was happening on my screen and not at my mini-map at that moment, because there's a lot of action happening, and I'm trying to figure out where to line up my torpedoes. So Ragnar's going down, he's losing hit points. The Kearsarge is coming up over here, focusing Napoli. And pay attention to this A-Gear player. He actually has a really good game, and I was actually looking over there to kind of see. That was actually really important. I was seeing how is my team moving, and they're all kiting. The Napoli's smoked up, and maybe Napoli's going to run up to the island here, yeah, he's going up there, or he might turn out completely, or he's going to sit there. I don't know, because it seems like the enemy team has this push forming up on the one line. So I'm like, okay. Ragnar's dead. Napoli's secondaries just finished him off. I can push up closer. Alaska is still 16 kilometers away, so his 10-kilometer radar isn't really contributing here at all. We've lost 2, they've lost 2, both of them being destroyers. There's quite a high value as a destroyer player. If you stay along for the last half of the battle, I can be like game changer. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to fan Torps out. 2 spreads on Cerberus. I'm like, he's moving forward with that crawling smoke screen. Let me tap that out. So he has the crawling smoke generator. So he typical that they move forward like a quarter speed. So I'm predicting he's going to do that. So that's why I dumped the Torps the way I do. I dumped Torps on the Edgar. You know, I'm like, I'm not for sure if he is smoke or he's radar, but I don't want to take the chance. So I immediately hit my engine boost, and I'm going to turn out and run. If he decides to sit behind the island, he'll eat these Torps, but he also has a 5-kilometer hydro, so it's very likely he knows that they're coming. So you can see our team's kind of stacked up on the one line and kind of countering this push almost, if you will. This is where things get funny. So Napoli's like, I'm going to back off, but the Aegir player is like, nah, I'm going to push forward. So he's pushing up to this island, and I'm worried about the Edgar dumping a lot of Torps into him. So for now, I'm just trying to see if Cerberus is going to eat a torpedo or not. Alaska is still playing, you know, further back. I don't need to keep running away. He does eat 1 torp, get the flooding. He's probably going to DCP. One of the things that's probably uncomfortable for a lot of DD players, I mean, most players in the game, is the fact that you don't have to be running full speed in circles the whole time. You can kind of sit, rock your ship back and forth. That's what we do. We call it the Edgar. He's running up on the Aegir. And Aegir has all of his guns turned in advance. Fantastic. He's dumped Torps off that way as well. Edgar is this light cruiser. It doesn't have a lot of armor. It gets completely smacked there. And I'm pretty sure Edgar is turning out because he's trying to get his Torps off. But then it's ironic that the Tier 9 premium torpedoes the super ship. So he did great there. So I'll give him a well's done. That threat's gone. So now that threat's gone, it looks like he was indeed a smoke. You can see the smoke there over by the Aegir. I can push in. I can actually play quite aggressive now, as long as the Alaska doesn't push me out with his 10-kilometer radar. So what I'm going to do, we have 35,000 spotting now. We haven't been doing a ton. I mean, we killed the DD early on. We've been trying to get lucky with our Torps. It's been a little bit difficult. But I want to go deeper into the ACAP. And put some more pressure on them. We're down 4 ships, they're down 3, you know, and as I'm kind of moving up, I'm noting what's happening on the mini-map. Our team's kind of playing a little more defensively. That's probably good. You know, you got a cruiser stationed up over here. You know, last time both DDs were spotted, they were kiting away. There's a battleship somewhere in question back here. So I'm like, okay, like we have the points lead, right? We're 535 to 443 because we had that early cap. Point advantage. That's another thing you're trying to think about in general as a veteran player, the points, because the points will dictate maybe how you play. So for now we have the lead, even though we're down an extra ship than they are. So I want to get closer. I see the Alaska. I'm pretty sure we're probably actually spotting the Alaska. I don't remember his conceal. It's around 12.2, yeah, if it's max conceal. But I'm trying to figure out, is Ohio going to push in Is he wanting to go around this way? Does he want to shift and go up? So I'm going to hang on to my torps for a minute. Just see what he does. Then I decide, well, he seems to be kind of stalling. So I'm going to fan him out. He doesn't seem like he knows what he wants to do. And then the Kearsarge comes out as well. And it looks like now those two are perhaps working together to go up the one line. I'm still looking over at Alaska. He's really moving away, so I'm really going to be able to just start ignoring him because, I mean, he's just not playing really close to the team. So now, Pie would have been nice if I wanted to fill that whole gap with torps, which is why I did it the way I did. But maybe having a third rack, if they did decide to make the push in reserve, might have been nice to torp over here to the right side. But Ohio is going to eat 3 of our torpedoes, so we bring him down quite low, which is going to take pressure off of our team that's forming this defensive line on the one line. They're not going to have as much to chunk through there. We get an additional torque there on the Kearsarge on his stern there. So this is great. So what I decided to do now is I want to sit here and I want to let my torps reload at 54 seconds. And if they kind of slow down and dilly-dally here, I'm going to torp them again. No one's preventing me from sitting here doing this. I'm also, if you look at the mini-map, my conceal is 5.6. I'm leaving a bit of a gap in case the Cerberus decides to poke out here and run at me or run up towards the cap. So if he does, he doesn't immediately spot me and then end up maybe getting a lot of damage off of me with his 203 guns. So I'm checking, okay, Alaska seems to sailed away. Alaska just seems allergic to the fighting at the moment. But I also have a smoke screen in case Cerberus does pop up. And Cerberus does have a hydroacoustic search. If he does mount it, it's a 5-kilometer one, so I have to be mindful of that as well. Now a little bit of a time pressure here, because I would like to actually get my torps off now, but of course they're not reloaded. There's the Cerberus, and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna have to go forward, but I'm gonna kind of slow down. I'm gonna play with my throttle here, because I want to try to wait as long as possible before I need to just like immediately boost away. So my thinking is now I'll dump the torps, and if one of them decides to slow down and sit here, you know, this stalemate engagement, then they'll eat my torps. That's basically the thinking right now. So we'll see how many torps I dump here. I don't remember, maybe just a rack. And I hold 2 racks in reserve, I think, for the Cerberus. We'll find out here. Cerberus smokes up. We're close enough to him, I think. Where can I find out here? I can't see a smoke fire penalty range, but I'm pretty sure we're within it. So I'm like, okay, he's going to slow down. Let's get some torps off again, kind of the same as last time. He ate a torp then, and see what happens. The Aegir says, I'm going to yellow. And he torpedoes both of them. Or he shoots the Aegir, or Aegir kills Ohio with guns, and then he torps the Kearsarge. So I take that back. He didn't torp both of them. But it was a really cool move, what he did there. Cerberus, I think he spotted our torps and he panics, so he has to accelerate full on forward. He eats a torp. We go ahead and open guns, but Aegir immediately claps back and putting him up to 4 kills. So he's had a really good game. We do still have to be mindful of Cerberus torpedoes as well. I mean, he's dead now. Down here. They have 13.5 kilometer range. So there's a lot of torpedo threat these days in World of Warships. So we're going to activate our engine boost. Now we're pouring our attention to what's happening on the mini-map, what's happening the rest of the battlefield. So this is kind of the moment where you can have a lot of time to reflect. Oops, I just smacked the microphone. A lot of time to reflect of what's happening. Where am I needed, right? There's a DD up here. We have a cruise over here. And then I'm like, ooh, Annapolis and Alaska. I think the Annapolis, I kind of make a guess. Maybe Annapolis will come out on top here with the Alaska. He doesn't. Apparently, he gave a little too much angle there, too much side. So he just gets smoked by the Alaska. So I decide, okay, well, he's going down here. He's low health, my Aegir. I can keep playing. I don't need to go back. Iowa's coming over to help. I'm thinking maybe Wisconsin. He might circle down here. Maybe he comes back at B. I don't know. But what I want to do is come over here and help Napoli out. The other thing that we still have is, you notice my RPF, it's pointing this way. It's still pointing to Alaska. So I'm going to get up here a little bit further. And I'm like, you know, if Alaska decides to run up the channel, I'm full health. I have a seasoned commander that gives me an additional survivability, additional hit points on this commander. So I think survivability expert should be taken on Shimakaze, but that's just me. Other players seem to not favor that. But I have a lot of hit points to play. I haven't lost any hit points so far. So I can totally charge in Alaska and come out on top and kill him with only 1 Torp rack and still have 2 Torp racks in reserve. So Napoli gets the kill on Venezia. It's great. Trump's probably still going to be torturing with his HE airstrikes. We saw that earlier. And this is when I'm paying attention to my RPF, and I'm like, I wonder. I think this Alaska's coming up the channel. So now the goal is I need to help try to protect the Napoli if I can. Because if the Alaska breaks out, you know, Napoli didn't have a lot of hit points. He got citadeled, I think, by that battleship back there, and he gets smoked. Now, I'm trying to get around here as fast as I can, because as soon as he steps on the cap, he might think Alaska could take the thought and like, hey, why am I not getting the cap? I'm not progressing in my points. Oh, someone else is on the cap. It's probably their destroyer player. So he doesn't have Hydro up. He's not used his radar or anything like that. So he's not on the cap quite yet, because I'm trying to be so fast in getting over here when I begin to think, you know, he might come up the channel. And then we get proxy spotted. So I'm going to dump 1 rack off on the side. I'm not going to dump all of them. If for some reason that rack doesn't do the job, I'm going to hold the other 2 racks in reserve, and I'm going to come around on his other side. And we get the kill. So we keep our Napoli player alive, which is great. And then what I'm going to do, there's hardly any points left. If no one else dies, assuming. I'm going to keep playing. I'm just going to run down and I'm going to flip C. And we, and then immediately, oh yes, the Trump's dead, excuse me. It's the Shimakaze, enemy Shimakaze player. He's doing his work. So he takes out the Napoli. And I get told in chat to Shima spot their Shima. I don't know who was that. It was their Napoli player. But the points are so close that by the time I get all the way up there, not really going to do any good, in my opinion. We've got time. We've got points. Even if he does manage to also kill our Iowa, like, it's still going to be okay. But I'm a little more concerned about our Aegir player. I want to try to come down and I want to spot the enemy battleship. So again, my RPF is telling me he's somewhere off this direction. I'm like, oh, he could be close. Maybe I should have gone a little further out to the right in case I didn't just like immediately see him. So I decided to go a little bit out here, and I'm like, do I dump torpedoes or not? And honestly, I should have dumped torpedoes right off the bat here. I think we're so close in points that it's not worth me dumping torpedoes. And that's kind of me assuming the game's over before it's actually over, and it's not. Shimakaze, our enemy Shimakaze kills our Iowa, right? So I'm like, ooh, okay, so it's gonna be a little bit longer here. The other thing really big, our AA is off. It's the key down here beneath. That's usually the P key as the default key. So he's dropping depth charges because he wants to see where we're at. It's gonna give him information to tell him where am I as the torpedo destroyer at, and he makes a really good decision. He decides to turn out and away. Possibly not going to take any torpedoes, rather than just continue to sell broadside to the cap, which is really smart of him. Now, in the meantime, he is going to be showing broadside as a result to the, let's tap, nope, I gotta keep going here, to our Wisconsin and Aegir, if Aegir keeps opening up. So he could eat a lot of damage for turning out broadside, but I mean, these are Shimakaze torpedoes. You know, we do 23,000 damage. So it's the right play. And what does he do? He just decides to fully turn out from the enemy our Wisconsin and the Aegir, and properly angling to him. Definitely a smart play there. And so that brings the game to an end, just like that. So that's kind of like the mindset of going through. What is a veteran, perhaps like myself, what am I thinking when I go through if I'm being really sweaty? Now, there are certainly times where I'm totally just like chilling out and I'm not really putting a lot of thought and effort, but I'm trying to get a good Shimakaze video for Saturday, because I've never featured this ship before and I've never done an upgrade commander build video on it, which is like crazy dumb because I've always had to ship in the research bureau resetting. So, so we get the Dev Strike in the First Blood. Our early reward for paying attention to the destroyer smoking. Don't be a Fletcher, don't smoke as soon as you step on the cap, because that just tells me where you're at. And otherwise, I wouldn't know where to dump my torpedoes. And he died because of dumping smoke on the cap. In the end, 141,000 damage. We're actually going to top our team, even though we didn't look like we really did a lot. I mean, we didn't have 41,000 damage, but we got a solo cap. We got an assisted cap. We got 5 defended. We got 2 kills. So we did decent there. So did our gear. We complimented him. And then when you look at the detailed report, we did almost 80,000 in spotting. So we did 10,000 on the Ragnar, only a little bit on the Alaska, because Alaska just wasn't really playing aggressive at all until the very end. And then you can see that on the Baji, Cerberus, Ohio, and Kearsarge. And so you also get rewarded as a destroyer player for spotting, right? So we're filling that spotting role. And we took our time at the start of the battle. So that is today's part 4 of the Veteran Player Guide series, and just kind of an introductory to, map positioning, map awareness, situational awareness, how I'm playing the ship, Shimakaze, this really good concealment, torpedo destroyer with what enemy ships are in the game, whether we're talking about, there weren't any CVs except a hybrid, there weren't any submarines, so that wasn't a big concern. But we had to be mindful of the radar ships, and the radar ships actually let us get away with a lot this game. So it worked out quite well, and we played off of that. So if you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. And until next time, take care.